Picture a Monday morning. Someone is replaying the game like it was a personal milestone, and then they turn to you with that casual question, "So who do you root for?" When you shrug, the room often hears something else. No passion, no tribe, no pulse. But that reading is lazy. Not caring about sports is rarely a moral failure or a social defect. It can be a different reward map. Some brains light up for uncertainty, rivalry, and borrowed victories. Other brains look for meaning that feels direct, personal, and internally stable, so the same stimulus simply does not land. And this is exactly why sports pulls so many people in. Human beings are not just individuals with private preferences. We are social creatures built to survive through belonging. Long before we argued about ideas, we bonded through groups, rituals, and shared symbols that told us who was us and who was them. Modern life has diluted a lot of that structure, and sports quietly replaces it. A team becomes a portable tribe. Colors, chants, inside jokes, and a calendar of collective emotion. The stadium and the watch party create a controlled kind of unity, a safe battlefield where conflict has rules, stakes feel meaningful, and connection is effortless. Even if you never touch the ball, you still get to belong. On the brain level, that belonging is reinforced by a very specific kind of reward. Dopamine is often treated like a simple pleasure chemical, but it is closer to a motivation and learning signal. It spikes when the brain detects uncertainty, sudden change, and the possibility of payoff. Sports is basically an uncertainty generator. Every drive, possession, or pitch carries micro-stakes. A near miss, a surprise turnover, a controversial call, a momentum swing that rewrites the story in seconds. Those moments deliver small, frequent dopamine pulses, not one big hit. And because outcomes are unpredictable, the reward pattern becomes intermittent, the same schedule that makes slot machines so gripping. Your brain keeps leaning forward, not because it is irrational, but because it cannot fully predict when the next emotional payoff will arrive. If you do not care about sports, it often means that this particular reward channel is not your default setting. Many non-fans are less attracted to us versus them thinking, and they are less likely to fuse their identity with a group they did not personally build. Their self-worth tends to come from self-authored sources, a skill they are sharpening, ideas they are exploring, relationships they are actually shaping. So a team's win does not feel like a win inside their own body, and a team's loss does not feel like personal damage. The emotional math is different. The brain simply does not translate symbolic group outcomes into individual value. That difference shows up in a classic pattern psychologists call burging, basking in reflected glory. When a team wins, fans instinctively say, "We won," as if the victory flows into their own identity. When the same team loses, the language often flips to, "They lost," creating distance that protects the ego from the sting. This is not just irrational fandom. It is a self-regulation strategy, a way to borrow status when it is available and avoid contamination when it is not. If you are not a sports person, you tend to do less of this borrowing, which can make your self-evaluation steadier across the ups and downs of public outcomes. Some of this may also be temperament, and temperament has roots. Research often points to dopamine system differences as one factor that shapes how strongly people seek novelty, intensity, and risk. So it is plausible that for some minds the emotional volatility of sports feels like fuel, while for others, it feels like noise. Personality matters too. People higher in openness to experience are often drawn to beauty, nuance, and imaginative complexity more than competitive scorekeeping. They may get their reward from art, music, design, or ideas that do not resolve into a clear winner. In that sense, disinterest in sports can reflect not a lack of passion, but a different style of passion. And this is where people misunderstand the non-fan. They assume low interest means low feeling. But empathy is not a single tank you either have or lack. It is a budget you allocate. Some people simply do not want to spend deep emotion on symbolic teams and distant outcomes. They place that care into real relationships, personal projects, art, nature, ideas, or social issues where the connection feels tangible. The heart is still active. It is just aimed at targets that feel more reciprocal and real. Sometimes it is not biology at all. It is biography. For some people, sports comes packaged with memories of exclusion, being picked last, being mocked for not knowing the rules, or dealing with a hyper-competitive culture where dominance mattered more than play. When that happens, the brain tags sports as social threat, not joy. and it learns to disengage. And sometimes the explanation is even simpler. The pace feels slow, the commentary feels repetitive, the outcome feels irrelevant. Boredom is not a character flaw. It is feedback about what your mind finds meaningful. At the deepest level, both fans and non-fans are chasing meaning, but they chase it through different structures. Sports offers a clean narrative the human mind loves. The underdog, the comeback, the rivalry, the final redemption moment, where chaos turns into resolution. Real life rarely gives endings that satisfying, so the game becomes a reliable story engine. But many people who do not care about sports want meaning that is less symbolic and more reciprocal. They want their emotional investment to touch something that can touch them back. A relationship deepens because you show up. A skill grows because you practice. A cause moves because you contribute. The payoff is slower, but it feels personal, and it feels real because your actions actually matter. So if you do not care about sports, nothing is wrong with you. You are not boring, and you are not missing some essential human spark. Your brain is simply tuned to different rewards, and your sense of meaning lives elsewhere. If this felt true, subscribe and share it with the friend who keeps calling you weird.